Hey everyone, welcome to the Sunday Sitdown, and I'm here with Pastor Grant as we are ready to explore a really difficult passage.
Yep.
And so this past Sunday, we were reading through the very end of Luke chapter 9. We are, after it feels like a couple months really in this chapter, we are moving into Luke chapter 10 this week, but it ends on quite a doozy.
Yes, it does. And
Yeah.
it feels hard and even harsh. You read it and you're like,
Yeah.
what's going on? Yeah. What is Jesus talking about here?
So Jesus in this passage, he interacts with like three different scenarios and sentences, and sometimes the people come to him. Sometimes he goes to the person and says something. You know, it's like the person comes to him and says, "I will follow you wherever you go." And then the next time, it's Jesus says to the person, "Follow me." And then another person says, "I'll follow you, but let me first say farewell to those at my home." So it's this interesting dynamic where of like just back and forth and interacting with these unknown people that we don't, it doesn't name them, which actually kind of maybe is a good starting place for moments. You mentioned in the sermon that you chose a different translation than you normally chose. And we've gotten into this a little bit at times.
Yep.
So you chose the ESV, which is the English Standard Version. And so you had a particular reason for that.
Yeah.
And you said there was a particular word, the word someone, that it says the very first section, 57, it says, "As they were going along the road, someone said to him, 'I will follow you wherever you go.'"
Yeah.
So what's going on there? Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. One word, literally for one word. So, yeah, I think probably most often I'm preaching from the New International Version, the NIV.
Why?
I find it, the NIV I find to be generally for people the most readable version that is also closest to the original text. So I think, and I'm using a version from, I think it's the 80s still,
Right, the 1984.
that Cambridge put out. And so I like the mix of readability in it and honesty and attempt to capture the original meaning of the closer to a literal translation of in the New Testament, the Greek text. So, a good example of one of the reasons why I like the NIV is I think it does some of the, which is interesting because this is the exact reason I didn't choose the NIV for this one, for this passage, is I think it does some of the like inclusive gendered language fairly well. So for example,
when it's talking about when it's the translation may say men or brothers, when really it does mean everyone, right?
Yeah. So very often you'll read brothers, adelphoi, plural of adelphos, which is brother, but we also understand that in language where there is there's masculine and feminine words, typically you're using a masculine word in the plural form to represent a group of people that is not only men. Right. So,
y'all,
exactly. You all, y'all.
Or even like, hey guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, hey guys. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, that's not the reason why I choose the NIV, but I think they did a pretty good job of trying to use language that everybody can read and find their way into the text.
Yeah.
Right. So, that I think is important. It's important to find your own way into the scriptures and see yourself there and feel like experience your way into the story. And I think the NIV does a good job of that, that balance.
But in this passage.
So in this passage though, they don't.
Yeah.
And in the NIV, it's a man comes to Jesus. And literally, it is someone comes to Jesus. And I just thought, I'm going to waste too much time going down this rabbit trail to make a very simple point, it's not worth it. I'm going to start with a translation that starts with someone, because that's what I think is most honest and closest to the original language. And it's the specific to the point that I was trying to make, which is someone comes to Jesus and says, Jesus, I will follow you wherever you go. I heard a sermon from the now former retired president of the seminary that I went to, in a sermon, say very simply, like, this someone could be anyone. This someone could be me. This someone could be you. And I, sort of half quoted him in the sermon. I said very similarly, like, this someone could be anybody, and it could be you. And in fact, you should see yourself here. It ought to be. Here's someone who is wanting and longing to follow Jesus. We don't fully know exactly, like Luke, at least, to be honest, to Luke's text, we don't know how this story ends for this guy.
Yeah.
Whether this someone follows Jesus or not, but like Luke doesn't tell us. What I think I wanted and still want people to hear is the call to follow Jesus, the call to follow me, to be that someone who rises up and says, Jesus, I will follow you wherever you go. Like, that is still, I believe, the fundamental call that Jesus issues to every single person. And one of the questions that you need to be confronted with is how you are going to respond to that question. And so, here are three people. It's this great, Jesus is all, very typically doing this, and it's very common in Jesus's day, this like threefold teaching, where there's the, like you've already said, there's the I will follow me, I will follow. That threefold repetition is very common in Jesus's teaching. It's very common in the teaching of the day to make a point. So what Luke is doing very, very critically, very intentionally, is painting this picture of Jesus, reminding these would-be followers, and in a sense reminding his own, like his followers, his disciples, and us, what it really means to follow him. And so that threefold, you're like, we're supposed to see ourselves there. The someone is supposed to draw you in and be like, it could be me. It ought to be, it is me. Like, yep, Jesus, I'm with you. And then the flip is, yes, I'm there, I'm in, I want to follow, I'm all in even, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Yeah. And then to be, confronted with that, oh, but you still don't fully understand what it is. Yeah. Also, I too don't fully always understand the cost of what it means. So I think it's this beautiful, and we didn't get this far into it. I do think it's this beautiful rhetorical move that Jesus makes and that Luke captures, which is to like pull you in and get you to this place where you're like, I'm there, I'm all in. And
but are you?
And then he says, and this is what it means. And you go, oh, I didn't maybe fully understand. Yeah. And it just hits you differently. Yeah. Then, this isn't Jesus saying, okay, here's the pitch to become a disciple. This is what is going to mean. Who is in? Like, he's got your attention. He's, captured your heart and your mind. And then he says, hey, it's not, I don't think this bait and switch, but it is a cautionary, like, don't become overzealous. Yeah. Without also realizing the cost of love.
Yeah. Yeah. It was dawning me as we were kind of rhyming off those three phrases. I mean, at the risk of being very wrong here, it almost feels like slightly chiastic, like that you got, I will follow at the beginning, and then I will follow as the final statement. Yeah. And then Jesus in the center starts and he says, follow me. Yeah. And it feels like, in any chiastic structure, you're supposed to kind of zero in on the center. And it's a Jesus saying, follow me. That's the most important thing, rather than just saying, I will follow, I will do this, like good intentions aside, right? Yep. Jesus says, just follow me, right? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So I don't think you're wrong.
Good.
Like, and let me say why, because I've not heard anybody else name it that way, but what I would say is I think Jesus is constantly trying to do this in his teaching. He's trying to do this flip of, so even just think of like, I will follow, no, follow me. I will follow. Who's the principal actor, right?
Yeah.
Like, I do think that there's a word of caution to someone who overzealously says, I will do this. I will do this. But Jesus says, no, follow me. Right? Like the attention is almost shifting. I will follow me, I will follow, does exactly, I think, what you're suggesting, which is put the focus on Jesus's call. And that's what Bonhoeffer in The Cost of Discipleship focuses on, like more than anything, like almost to the degree where you could say it doesn't matter, like you saying I will do something doesn't matter until Jesus says, follow me. First, like Jesus first needs to call a human. Bonhoeffer does this. Like he says, Jesus first needs to call a man, but like he first needs to call a human, like a person. And our role is to respond. Right? I don't know anybody who walked up to someone and said, without having ever met them, first things out of their mouth, I'm going to marry you. Like there's a little bit of that, I think. Like we need to, the focus needs to be on the call of Jesus that he places on the human being, and our role is to respond and to be drawn and pulled in that direction. So I think that's a great way to think about it.
Side note, though, I did declare, at least to myself, that before I even met my wife, that I was going to marry her.
Right on.
So
was it the first thing you said to her when you met her?
It was not.
Okay. Because that would have been great in real time to meet the very first person.
At 13 years old.
Wow. We were just talking about how you have predicted the last 2 Blue Jays games outcomes.
Well, I'm an eternal optimist. We're getting ready in real time here to get my heart crushed as they enter the playoffs. So
the marriage has a little bit more at stake to it.
But I do
do
think there's something interesting when you talk about like relationships of that nature, like a marriage. You have someone. If someone constantly went to that person that they profess to love and are constantly saying, I will do this, I will do this, I will do this, but don't actually put in the work to do the thing.
Yeah.
Like that, the intentions are irrelevant in some ways.
Yeah, you're
right?
like, okay, prove it, buddy.
Prove it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was interesting as we're as we're talking about that a little bit.
Yeah. So no, I do think it like Jesus pursues you, and that's the beauty of how God acts throughout all of Scripture, and it's the beauty of how God continues to act throughout human history. Is like God is one who pursues and calls and beckons and summons. And Karl Barth talks about like he uses language of being woken up, like being awakened to the reality of who God is. And I realize that some of that language has been turned and twisted sideways now, but I think that's a beautiful illustration of like God relentlessly pursuing the person, and our role being to almost relax into a response, as opposed to like anxiously trying to grab for ourselves something that we will never fully attain. I wish more people, for their own sake, like not because I'm a pastor and I want to be right about something, but like for their own sake, I wish more people would just relax their way into hearing the call of God.
It's something I need to hear. And I think, growing up and I would say like my theological training leans more into Wesleyanism versus Reformed theology, right? And sometimes those were very much at odds with the other, right? But I think when we see things rightly in their, in the way that they are intended, that the Reformed tradition in particular has a real gift of saying like, stop stressing so much about doing all the things because Jesus is doing the thing, you know, that Jesus is pursuing you. Like, just sit with that reality, right? That's something that I need. Because I think that there are some, you know, things that I have inferred over the years that are not always right or true about, you know, certain schools of theology, this being one of them. And so for me, that's been a gift for me to be able to just say, like, I just need to sit with that reality, that this is healthy and good, to just rest in the work that Christ has done in pursuing me.
I think at its best, Reformed theology does that.
Yes.
And I think at its worst, it does the exact opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think that you could say the same thing for Methodism, right?
Absolutely.
Like that it becomes, you know, the tension is that, you know, grace is huge in Wesleyanism, but also there is a strong emphasis on personal choice and right, which can go sideways if you go about it in the wrong way.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So we talked about three challenges to following Jesus, like to answering this call to follow Jesus. And then I gave 3 practices for each of those, which I think we're going to try to talk about in a little bit more kind of concrete terms. But I do think, just to kind of link the 2 pieces, I said this on Sunday, like, and I genuinely believe this. Like, I know there are people who very adamantly do not want to follow Jesus.
Yeah.
Very adamantly so. I generally assume that, you know, most people who call themselves Christians want to follow Jesus. And we struggle with this internal kind of battle of the wills. Yeah. Like my will and what Christ wills for me and on my behalf.
Yeah.
And what I want and what Jesus wants for me. And so, like, I do think that I generally assume that people want to follow Jesus well. But we're all broken. And we all wrestle with these internal struggles. And so that's what I was trying to name a little bit, is not the sense of like, oh, how could you not want to follow? Let me convince you of why it matters. But for those people who are wrestling it out, whether they believe or not, like whether they are in early sort of stages of wrestling out what they believe, or whether they are wondering and questioning and just curious about religion and coming to it for the first time. Like, I think there's a genuine like want to discover and find out, or, you know, for many people who've been in the church for a long time, like I think there's a genuine desire to do the thing. And this is why I use Paul's language. It's like, I want to do the right thing, and I just keep doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You know, as we wrestle this sin thing out daily. And so that's where these challenges came from. I think, you know, in some ways an attempt to name some of the modern challenges to being a follower of Jesus. And then, one practice that can help kind of push against and form us in a different way.
So the first one, so as they were going along the road, someone said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. And so you highlighted the challenge of comfort here. And that the person is, you know, boldly declaring that they will go wherever Jesus goes. But then Jesus says, but it's not always going to be comfortable, and it's not always going to have, you know, there will not be a luxury. It's not going to be a 5-star hotel along the way. And so just that the very practical piece of comfort is not always going to be in the cards for a follower of Jesus. Right.
Yep.
And that the tension there is that doesn't mean that Jesus isn't also our comfort, and that the Holy Spirit is not also our comfort, and that there is not moments and times of beauty and enjoyment and all those things, right? That it doesn't exclude those things. But Jesus is saying, look, the road is not always going to be easy. and you need to be ready and prepared for that. And then you responded with the answer to that challenge of comfort as generosity, and generosity being just an ultimately like a desire to like, if the more I give, even to the point of discomfort, like it's actually going to free me so much more.
Yeah, I think it's C.S. Lewis who says that if you don't give away enough to make yourself uncomfortable, he probably has harsher language than this, but at least think about it. Right? I think he says we ought, like the Christian should be, like ought to be the one who gives away what feels like just a little bit too much, which, you know, I think we can come to the conversation around generosity from different perspectives. I think part of it is always going to circle back around to money, and we can talk kind of more about that too. But you know, I think the type of generosity that I was talking about on Sunday is not simply when generosity that refers only to money. But I think just in terms of all of the way you live your life and how you make decisions, how are you becoming one who is practicing being generous? And I think that is in terms of how you think about your money, right? How you spend it, how you allocate it, what you budget. So for starters, do you budget, right? Do you plan to give away? Or is it like, let me do all the things and then whatever's left, you know, if there's something left over, then I can be generous with that, right? I think the Christian is the one who is called to say, no, the first things that we give are the things we give back to God. So that is going to be money. But I also want people to think about their time and their energy. Some of like your most precious resources, you know, right? How you are spending your time, how you're spending your days becomes how you spend your life. So are you doing it in a way that is living open-handed toward God and going, God, you know, even today, would you make me generous so that I can live for somebody else's benefit and not mine, right? Like, I think it's even as silly as like, you know, we're talking before, like I might have to go up and visit a family member, and I think about that drive, and I go, okay, I gotta get like 407, 401, 400. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be generous. I'm going to give people space. I'm going to give people grace. I'm going to not stress.
On the highway.
On the highway.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah.
And so, like, I really, I want people thinking, and I want to be one who thinks about all of these moments of my life as an invitation toward generosity. So giving extra grace.
Yeah. That is generosity.
Yeah.
And that's, reframing it, and that, yes, it's not about money,
Yeah.
but it is about so much more. And for us to conflate only generosity with money would be a danger.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And it actually, like, something that we did yesterday in our service is like a little bit of insider baseball here. So we, on the fourth Sunday of every month, we take up an offering. We don't do that every week, but we pass the plates for those who like and enjoy the physicality of that, right?
Yeah.
And there's an importance to that, and it just keeps things on our mind. And the reality is, we are reliant to function as a church on the generosity of our congregants, right? Like, that's just the reality, right? But I came to you and I said, okay, so I have the offerings slated for right after the sermon, and you're like, nope. you're like, no, we got let's create a buffer there.
Yeah.
And you couldn't quite articulate it in the moment.
Yeah.
But you were realizing you did not want to conflate those two things, which I think was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I had a moment slated in there in between that, and then I led the offering, which I think was the right call, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to make it seem, especially because it feels very like self-interested, to make generosity all about money and all about giving to the church, when we should be doing generous things with our resources and money in ways that go far beyond just giving to the church, right? That I should be generous with making a meal for someone in need. I should be generous because that costs time and money and resources, right? I should be generous with my neighbors in various ways when I find out that they are sick or, whatever, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I think that was a really, I think beautiful moment and exchange. And two things that I want to say. One, I think so often that's how discernment works. Is like I think I said to you yesterday, like I can't tell you why. I just know that this is the right decision. And
I'm glad we have that flexibility. Like we need that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think where it becomes true, like true discernment is not just because I said I can't, like I know that this is the right answer and I can't tell you why. This is the right thing. For you to then say back, yep, okay, great. So this is what we'll do. And then for it to be, I think, confirmed
as I'm sitting there,
as you're sitting there, as
hearing the sermon,
exactly,
and I'm like, oh yeah, that was the right call,
right? So all of that together, packaged together, is actually what. And this is not to pump our tires, but just to give people, I think, a picture into the decision that we've made to intentionally separate it, to not make it feel coercive in any way. But B, also to give people a really practical example of like, this is how discernment works, where there is conversation that's more than just one person making a unilateral decision. There's confirmation of it. And so, I just think that's a pretty good, simple illustration of, this is what I'm sensing from God. Yes. Okay. Agree. And also we see the fruit of that decision. Yeah. And it's not going to always be that immediate, like within the course of 3 hours, but like that's a pretty good snapshot into, I think, how I envision and want for you, listener, to think about discernment in your own life. It's not just your own like want being sort of pseudo confirmed by what you think is God speaking to you, or by somebody else who just wants to agree with you. Like you have to see all those things. So it was fun. So that's the one thing that I want to say. The other thing that I wanted to say too about this is there is a conversation to be had, and I don't think it's today, about tithing and offering and generosity. And that the fact that I think those things overlap, but they are not actually, in fact, the same. So I think
I'd love to tease out and again, not today. So this is just stay tuned for some other time. Like how we think about, because I mean, there are lots of people that have like differing opinions on, the approach and the amount and the percentage and whether or not the New Testament does away with all of that or whether it doesn't.
Or whether it increases it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we should have a conversation. Like we should do a podcast episode on generosity and on tithing and offering. Because I think the other piece that I didn't want people doing is just conflating the two. Be like, oh, this is only over and above. Right? Because that's actually not, I believe, what a tithe is. It's not just, again, it's not the last of what you have over and above what I'm going to spend on my life over here. So anyways, I think it was the right move. And I think what I want people to hear from today is the discernment piece, because I think that's just really practical for your own life. And I also think like it's the insider baseball thing that you said. We want people to know that like our heart is not to make it feel coercive out of the sermon into like, okay, now give. Yeah. But
wasn't that a great sermon? Everyone, can you like give in response to that? Like, no, that's so icky.
What we're doing is giving in response to what God is doing.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, that's the big picture.
Yeah.
So it is a response.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a response to like, oh, I like the music extra today, or
Yeah.
that sermon extra convinced me to do this, or
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
whatever. It made me feel good, or it made me feel convicted, and now I've got to do that.
Yeah, giving out of that level of like obligation, or giving out of that sense of like, you're like, oh, that was I'm coerced now. Yeah, like
No.
this is not great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We respond to what God is doing in our lives and in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and we give because we believe that God is calling us to partner with what He's doing in the world.
Yeah, that's the language that we use when we introduce the offering. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So generosity, though,
Mm-hmm.
think about it in terms of big picture, whole life, open-handed. How is God gonna give you opportunities
Mm-hmm.
to choose to be gracious and benefit and extend in extra measure the things of the kingdom to other people, as opposed to trying to accumulate even the good things of the kingdom for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the danger. If I could just kind of flip to that, the danger is that we fall into the trap of thinking that being a follower of Jesus is comfortable in the sense of it gets me what I want. So I think that's one of the dangers of comfort. I think the other danger of comfort is that we think that we've arrived or made it.
Right.
That there's not more hard work to be done, right? That there's not another conversation to have, or more reconciliation to work toward, or more conviction that God's doing in your life. Like, you've not made it. I've not made it. And there are hard conversations for me to have in my life that are going to, I believe, ultimately lead to more life. But they're going to, I almost want to say, like, there are moments where it's just going to suck in the meantime, and it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to address those things in your life that Jesus wants to root out and change and shift. And that work is never done.
Yeah, whether you've been a Christian for a year or whether you've been a Christian for 80 years, the work is not done.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that what happens over time is we learn to see the conviction and correction of Jesus. Like, we learn to see the judgment of Jesus as liberating. Because, again, and this is why I think I like the language around practice so much, because it takes time and you have to do it over and over again.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can be like, I got it this time.
Yeah. And
other times you're going to be like, I missed it so incredibly. But what we know is Jesus is calling you to move and to continually progress forward. And that in that movement, there's going to be challenge, there's going to be conviction, there's going to be change. What I think ultimately, I hope for the listener, is that you learn to see the fruit of what God is doing in your life enough that you realize that the judgment and conviction and challenge of those hard moments is always for your good. So I think, we want to avoid those painful things. We want God just to like, can you just please, I'm snapping here. Like, that's the noise. Like, in an instant, can you take it away? Can you deal with this? Like, can you just make this done, go, like, be over, whatever the thing. And like, we want the easy fix. Jesus isn't the easy fix.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like what you've been created for fix. So they're hard moments in life. And like, I can think back to them in my life. And man, the thing that I just want people to know and hear is there's like wonderful freedom on the other side of those hard things. And then there'll be another hard thing. So
that's good. Okay. Do you want to move on to the next
Sure.
challenge? So, after that example, after the first statement that Jesus says, it says, to another, he, being Jesus, said, follow me. But he said, the other person, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. And Jesus said to him, leave the dead to bury their own dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God. And I don't, want to rehash just everything that you said in the sermon, because I mean, if you were curious about that, go back and listen, because Grant sort of unpacked some of the cultural hypotheticals there, the potentials of what this man was really saying.
Yeah.
Because I want us to stay, at a higher level of priority, right? Yeah. So the ultimate thing that this man seems to be saying is, my family takes precedence right now in all things. And that is probably one of the harder things for us to wrestle out, especially in our world today. And maybe it's this part of the world particularly. I find that family, I say this carefully, family like almost becomes an idol sometimes. And like, I love my family. And I would do anything for my family. And like that, so like just this hits home, right? And I think for you as well, right? Yeah. And so when we talk about priority and Jesus as priority, I liked the way you framed it. And maybe this is where we can go off a little bit, is that when Jesus takes priority in our lives, it seeps into every area of our life. Right? That all of a sudden I am a better husband. I'm a better father. I'm a better worker. I'm a better friend. I'm a better whatever. So whatever your priority is, maybe it's work. Maybe it's the pursuit of something that is ostensibly good. We need to take a seat back and say, okay, is this taking over? And then, the inverse of like, okay, what do I need to surrender here? What do I need to surrender to make sure that Jesus is preeminent?
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I think it was N.T. Wright in one of the commentaries that we read through in preparation for this week says, the irony is that the more you prioritize Jesus and that living, like following Jesus, so living all of life inside the kingdom of God, the better your other relationships become. Like the better your family dynamic and relationship is, the better spouse you can be, the better friend, the better parent. So, I think that is part of the challenge, is learning, I think, to trust that the more, I think my language yesterday, like the more relentlessly I pursue Jesus, the better a father, the better husband I'm going to be. I think I still, this is what did end up in the cutting floor. I still wrestle with the language of priority.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's good or bad or some of both. But, we were talking in the sermon prep meeting that we do every week about the idea that, you can sacrifice your family on the altar of ministry. So that's probably not prioritizing Jesus. That's like workaholism masking as faithfulness. But, we know that happens all the time, that pastors do their job and live their life in such a way that makes their kids walk away from not only like ministry, but Christianity altogether.
And there was one example, and I won't name the person. You can Google it if you want. But like, there was a pastor who lived many years ago, and the story goes that this person was so, quote unquote, faithful to their ministry and all of their works in that way that his spouse kind of walked away from that marriage after he had passed away, and she ended up remarrying, and was like, I know that he loved Jesus. But my now husband, I know that he loves me. And so she was like describing this feeling of like, I didn't feel that love from him, which is a miss. That's a huge miss. And you could potentially conflate when you talk about priority, which is why I understand the tension of that word, is if we have like a list, you say, well, Jesus at the top and then everything else, boom, 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 right?
Yeah.
That you could imagine that going sideways in certain personality types and
So I think it's not the list.
Yes.
Like I think it's not the list. I would go so far as saying this is gonna be judgmental and like somebody will judge me after I die, and that's great. But like I would go so far as to say if your spouse says of you, I know that you love Jesus, but I don't know that you love me, you're not loving Jesus. That's fake. Discipleship.
Yep.
Like that is religiosity. That is you know, I don't want to question, you know, this dude's salvation. Like that's not what I'm saying.
But it does it makes me less inclined to quote from him, to be honest.
Sure, right? You know, and that's not to say like each of us is broken in different ways, and you know, each of us need extra grace from Jesus and extra formation in specific areas of life, like where there are just bent toward, be it anger or bent toward complacency or like disconnection. They're like each of us will default kind of in our sin and brokenness toward these sort of negative sides of relationship. So
that's a good counterbalance. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do think, so and this is why I think I've quoted him on the podcast already a few weeks ago, but I really like Dave Adamson's language. So this was a pastor I was talking to about family, and early on, like in my ministry and in my journey as a dad, and he used the line, the way I love my spouse is the way I love Jesus. The way I love my kids is the way I love Jesus. There is no distinction there. And that, I think, gets at the heart of what Jesus is trying to do. And like Jesus is saying like that is, it is a priority. But actually what we need to see is not this ladder or list of disconnected priorities where I will spend, what happens then, right? Like you have 100% energy. I'm going to spend X percent on this.
It's got to be more than 50% of Jesus is your priority, right?
Right. So like 51%. Is that enough? Or does it just have to be the biggest chunk? 20% and then everything else is less than 20%.
Right.
It's not this equation, and it's not simple like that. It's not a easy to fix, find and do and articulate like Jesus and then spouse and then kids, and they're all going to be and then job, and everything can be disconnected.
Yeah, it feels very disconnected, yeah.
He said, like, everything becomes integrated into how you follow Jesus. So that means I'm going to be a different spouse. It means I am going to parent differently. It means I'm going to do my job, whatever it is, differently. If everything I am doing points to how I am loving Jesus or not, that is going to change the way I do the thing. So when I get on the 407 and then the 400 and maybe the 401, if I, want a spicier drive, like the way I am there in those moments is the way I am choosing to love Jesus. And I don't think that that doesn't cheapen what it means to follow Jesus or who Jesus is. I think we need to genuinely see all of life, every moment, as like in terms of our discipleship, our life in relationship to Jesus. We don't get to cut off a piece and be like, okay, God, so for the next 20 minutes, I am not following you, right? Or the next 45 minutes on this highway, I need you just to turn the other way and ignore what I'm about to say or think as I'm getting cut off all over the place. Like it just does that kind of dissociation or like division or like tearing apart of disintegration, maybe is the best language for it, is not the life that Jesus calls you to. Hey, are you going to fail? Am I going to fail? Am I going to mess it? Yes, absolutely. You're not going to be perfect all the time, and that is okay. But I think that's the level of integration that I do believe we're challenged.
And then we use the language of surrender as a way to sort of push against the temptations of prioritizing things in different ways. And surrender can also be challenging as well. Like, we've talked about this before, I think, but the first thing I think of is the hymn, I surrender all, and kind of the joke of, like, it's really more like I surrender some, but I think that, again, when we see it through this different lens of it all being integrated, it's not I surrender all, meaning I'm going to give every single one of my possessions and my clothing, and I'm going to give up all of these things, and I'm going to like do all that, and because I'm told I've got to surrender it all, right? It's rather Jesus in that, Jesus in my home, in my possessions, am I willing to hold it all loosely, right? And if Jesus called me and said, like, not on the phone, but if Jesus called me to make a radical life change, maybe to move across the ocean, that's very extreme, but it could be to move on the other side of town. It could be to live in intentional community somewhere. It could be to whatever. That way that I say, okay, Jesus, I don't get that. It's not comfortable, but I want to surrender it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a very simple prayer that you can pray through is as you. So I don't like transitions. I actually really don't like transitions. Like, from one thing, if I'm invested in a thing and need to like just screeching halt and shift to something else, like that's challenging, right? It's difficult. But I like what I was going to say is I like transitions as markers for maybe some of these prayers. So as we're recording this podcast, and while we're recording this podcast, like, it's a PA day for my kids. They're not in school, so they're hanging in my office.
I can hear them giggling a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
But we're gonna go from this, and I'm gonna have to shift back into the like full on kind of dad mode. They're in there, and I'm trying to get some stuff done. So how am I praying as we get up from recording this and moving into that next piece? Yeah, whatever you want for this next thing, I'm open to it, right? Like, just keep me sensitive and open to what you're doing in these moments. Let me not miss it. And I think that's like we because I agree. So that hymn, I surrender all, the moving across the ocean, like my goodness, like these massive moves. Like a year ago, we moved my family not across the ocean, but to a different city and to a different church. Like those are big moments. And yes, they require surrender. Yeah. And God might be asking you to surrender at that level. But I actually think where it is most difficult, because you can get really behind those big decisions. Be like, okay, like I'm going to seek people's counsel. I'm going to talk. We're going to pray about it. We're going to make lists. We're going to think. We're going to explore. We're going to do all that. We're going to remain curious and open. And we're going to ask, we're going to make it as this big thing. I think what's harder is the daily surrender of the little everyday, quote, mundane, which I don't actually believe exist, moments of life. Like the everyday little moments. And because, again, I said at the beginning, like the way you spend your days is the way you spend your life. And I don't know who I'm quoting there, but it's not me. So, somebody said that. Yeah. And I do think that what we're called to is this daily surrender. C.S. Lewis calls it like self-surrender in these smallest of ways is actually still the call of Jesus. So I think where we practice this really practically and specifically is I think of praying that prayer every time in your day when you shift to something new. Just pray, God, would you keep me open to whatever it is that you're going to do in these next moments? and then see what happens. Like, it's just this constant open-handed, I'm turning my hands up here, like for those listening, just constant open-handedness, whatever it is, that you want for this next season, like 30 minutes or the next 2 hours, would you make me open to it?
Yeah, it makes me think of like, especially for those of us who like to have a very concrete plan for our day, to say, okay, God, would you help me to just be a little less rigid as I go into this morning or this afternoon, right? And to see what God does in that, right?
We talk about holding things loosely.
Yeah.
Right? Like that kind of language is good. Yeah. So another really practical thing I would say is there's a book called Liturgy of the Ordinary. And literally, like the book is the goal is to make everyday moments feel holy again. And so to rediscover these little practices, like when you're making breakfast or like when literally like making a piece of toast, waiting for it. Right. So like, What do you do? Like, I don't know. What do you do when you stand there waiting for a piece of toast to go and to pop? Like, just choosing to slow down and saying, okay, I just think that there are really practical ways of using moments in every day to go, okay, God, like, I'm open to what you're doing. I'm here. I'm showing up. Like, man, so much of the Christian life is just showing up.
Yeah. For me, I, doing the dishes, there's been, a couple times over the past month where I've been like, okay, I have a lot of dishes to do here. I'm not going to put on a podcast.
Yep.
I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to like, just nothing. And that we don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
No.
Because I'm left alone with my thoughts and God, and that can be scary sometimes.
Yeah.
But God can speak pretty powerful things in those moments.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So big surrender. Yes, absolutely. I think for most of us, try practicing little self-surrenders. I want to do this. God, what do you want for this next half hour? Like, I'd really rather turn on Netflix and just tune out for, an hour or two before going to bed. Okay, God, like, what do you want for this next 2 hours?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's going to change what you ultimately end up doing. Like, I don't think it's going to magically make you a holier person. Like, but I just think that practice does change your life. But it does start small, and it can start small, and don't feel bad about allowing it to just feel like those small acts of surrender.
I feel like a whole bunch of small acts of surrender turn into large acts of faithfulness, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's jump into the final one, and we're probably already way overboard, but just buckle in because we're not done yet. So the final contact point here for these individuals talking with Jesus. Yet another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at my home." And Jesus said to him, "No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." And this is someone who you describe this as the challenge of history, that the person is looking back rather than looking forward to what God is now doing, right?
Yep.
And you described a little bit of the challenge for, obviously us as individuals, where we can look back at a better season in our life and think to ourselves, the best is not yet to come. The best has already happened.
Yeah.
God worked then in my life and he's not working now. That's kind of a negative attitude.
Yep.
And we can do that as churches as well.
Yep.
Right. That we have in our head some picture of a golden era where God was most at work, and that we will, sometimes our attempts to recapture that can be nostalgia driven rather than asking ourselves, God, what are you up to? What do you want for us? And that, that you described it as curious obedience of we want to ask God, like, what are you doing in this next season in my life, in our life as a church? And yes, maybe it may be trying some of those old things from the past again, and it may be in a new and fresh way, but maybe it's a totally new thing, and we got to be ready for that. And that's scary, but it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as churches we do this. Churches can be so stuck in this habit and pattern, and this is why I love that. Like, there's only so much history here for us as a church. Like, what I want us to remember is the church planting spirit. Like, what I want us to remember is not the method, but the commitment to the mission. And again, I'm quoting people here. Like, this is not my language, but I do think when we look back as a church, what we are fondly remembering is the outcome of the mission, right? Is God moving and doing stuff in our lifetime. But then what we idolize are the methods.
Yeah.
Because we think that, in order to recreate that moment, to use alliteration, we need to revisit the methods. Or we need to hold, the method is what we hold forward. When really it's we need to be committed to the mission of the church. The methods will always change. So I think we conflate those.
They have since the very beginning of the church.
Absolutely. For a long time, an organ was the primary instrument.
Gregorian chants before that.
The organ was called the devil's instrument when it was first introduced. Like, people fought. Churches were divided, like literally split over whether to have an organ. There were churches that had multiple services, and so they put an organ on a lift, and they would lower it into the basement so that people didn't have to see it.
Is that like Phantom of the Opera? Is it like that? I feel like that vibe of like there's the organ being low, like below.
Yeah.
Right? It's like
so we will always fight over methods.
And then, like, when drums got introduced into a church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh.
So, I think what ends up happening is we look back and we idolize what God was doing. Like, we go, hey, this was great. And it was great. That's that's not the problem. Like, that's the gift of it. But it becomes the problem when we say, wasn't it great back then? Well, what got us there? So let's do those things and hope that it'll create a fresh movement of God's Spirit. And what ends up happening always is you miss what God is doing right now. And so that's why I think it's so dangerous to look back as a church. It's good to celebrate. It's good to honor and recognize, man, we stand on the shoulders of faithful people. But they didn't see God move in their lifetime because they asked, well, what was God doing, the generation before? They got there for us immediately. They got there because they planted something new. And so God did a new thing. This church was planted. And so I think, we need to not look at methods. We need to stay committed to the mission. With that, we need to move forward. And I want people to hear this. How sad would it be if we missed what God was doing in our moment because we were more caught up with what he did in a previous moment?
And I think there's always something interesting about looking at, within those methods that worked really well in like whether it was a method that worked really well 1700, in the 1700s, or a method that worked really well in the 80s, right? That you can sometimes look, rather than at the specific thing, you start looking like what was underneath, what was like the undergirding factor there, right? Where you can look at, say something like the shift. I'm going to use worship as an example, like the shift from hymns only to sort of some of the praise chorus type things from like Maranatha and Vineyard and those sorts of movements happening in like the 70s and 80s, and see where God was amazingly at work. That doesn't mean we need or must sing all of those songs from the 70s or 80s. Some of them maybe will bust out every now and then.
Yeah.
But reality is a lot of them sound very outdated and cheesy. Sorry for anyone.
Sorry, 70s.
Sorry. But like this reality is like, I'm a 90s kid and I would say the same thing for some of like the old Hillsong stuff from the 90s. Like super cheesy. And yet you see underneath that the way that God was moving among the churches and people, and it's not about the particular song. Yeah. It's about the spirit of what God was doing within those movements.
Yeah. So you know what method I think we should always only ever be married to is prayer.
Yeah.
Because I think that like when I look at, so if you're to take the revivals, for example, which is just even like to talk about what's happening in our own lifetime. Like I got to hang with like 130 university age students at the university here in town. And I got to tell you, man, like I don't know that I've been as optimistic for the church as like in recent times as I was leaving that gathering.
That's cool.
So like God's doing something in that generation. So Gen Z, Gen Z, whatever you want to call them, right? University age and beyond a little bit. But like you and I aren't part of that generation.
Nope.
And I don't know when it happened that I was like the old guy in the room, but 4 pastors there. And I was one of the old guys and I just got to sit there and cheer them on. And like that, God is doing something incredible in that generation. And I don't know what it is or where it's going to go and where it will lead, but like something is happening.
Yeah.
So to name that, throughout church history, I think it would be a very hard argument to make that you see anything like that happening, any sort of revival that you can't trace back to a group of people praying.
Yeah.
And so I think about some of the revivals through church history, some of the moments where God did a work of revival in a generation. I think you can probably trace it back to a group of people getting together and say, hey, we are going to pray, and we're going to pray, and we're going to pray. And nobody might know. But we are so deeply committed to this that, those are the things that spark renewal and revival. And so often it's a group of Christians who get together and meet in someone's home, right? Like it's not something that's like declared from the pulpit. Like this is what's happening.
Yeah.
Get ready.
I don't think, that's the tension is we don't just get to like declare revival.
No.
Like revival, not that we get to control God and how God moves and acts. But it is most frequently, you're right. It is like just people gathering and praying and just God showing up in a profound way.
The deep longing. So, okay. So, curious obedience.
And like, so I think about that again for our church, like that's so important that we remain just reflective on God, what are you doing in this season, in this moment? And like, I can say that, earnestly, truly right now, like, God, what are you doing in this season, in this moment? Like we had, like 25 plus people at like a newcomer's lunch yesterday.
Was that the number? I didn't count.
I just did a really rough estimate that didn't include all the kids that were kind of now, running around out elsewhere. But it was just like beautiful. Like for a church of like kind of like 200-ish on a Sunday, like 25 people. And I know that there was a whole bunch of others who are new that were not there, you know? Like, God, what are you doing? Like, this is cool. This is awesome. Like, how can we capture this moment and just partner with what you are doing in this moment? Yeah.
I think that's the curious obedience piece, right? Because what fear would say is, what if this change demands something of me? What if following in where God is leading makes me, to go back to number one, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What if I lose influence or authority, or what if I lose control of the thing that's happening? What if I can't define it?
I don't know as many people as I used to. There's all these new people. Where did they all come from?
What if I start to feel like the new person or like an outsider?
Yeah.
Like you can see how fear leads you down those roads fairly quickly. And the end of those roads is cynicism and bitterness.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's cynicism. Cynicism says, God must not be doing this because I don't like it. Right? Or for whatever reason. But like it must not be God because it's not what has happened in the past.
Yeah.
Or we didn't plan for it. Or we didn't do it. Or we don't understand it. Or we don't like it. Especially that one. We don't like it. Like cynicism is the God's not doing it. Bitterness is the I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Even if it is. Because I don't like what's happening. There's no place for me here. So curiosity and obedience, and curious obedience, I think is that another word that I had thought about using is wonder. So I think it's this constant practice of saying, God, what are you doing? And with it, I would say, pray this prayer. God, how amazing it is that I get to witness it in my lifetime. So I don't understand it. I don't know what it is you're doing. I don't know where it lands, like where it ends. Not quite sure my role in it. Happy for you to reveal all of those things to me. God, thanks that I get to witness this in my lifetime. How cool.
And I think particularly you're touching on Gen Z and this trend of they're like when you see church attendance stats, it's spiking. It's with millennials and Gen X, it's plummeting a little, and then with Gen Z, it's spiking, right?
Yeah,
and it's like that is going to be a very real tension for you and I as they emerge as full-fledged adults in the life of the church, of like they may see things very differently, and it's like we need to remain open to how God is going to work in that generation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So just like very, very practically speaking, like that is something that we are going to have to grapple with in the next couple of years, really.
Yep. And it's why, like, I love this, but some of our staff are Gen Z.
Yeah.
Right? Like some of our staff are inside of that generation and that demographic. But I do think one of the challenges becomes, how do you steward leadership and authority well in terms of releasing the next generation of leaders to actually lead.
Yeah.
And not just say, you tell me the good ideas that your generation likes and then we'll do them. But to say, hey, be free to lead, like go and do the thing. Release to go and lead in the ways that are going to reach that generation and beyond. Like, and then I think of our kids' generation. So I go, Gen Alpha, like, man, we're wading into waters. Like, I don't know when it happened, but you and I became like middle-aged.
Shh.
Like, I got more gray than you, man. Like, so it like, I think every generation has had to wrestle this out of releasing control and not making the past an idol. And I think what I want for people to learn is that prayer of, curious obedience. God, what are you doing and what are you calling me to do in it?
Yeah.
Because you're not done. Like if you're not dead, you're not done.
We have I that's the great thing, is that I think we will have so much to offer. In the same way that I look to like your dad's a pastor and my father-in-law was a pastor. And it's like, we often will look to them and say like, hey, we're trying to wrestle this out. Like, and like, do you have any wisdom or input for us? Cause they've been through so much over the decades. Right. And so like, there is always more to offer. Right. But like it excites me to think about like having to wrestle with some of those thoughts of like, we gotta figure out how we're relinquishing control and surrendering. It's going to be uncomfortable.
All the things.
And
This is why you preach to yourself first.
That's great. So this was this is probably one of our longest ones. I haven't seen the time on it yet, but it's probably one of our longest podcasts. So if you are still with us and if you hung out with us, this was, I think, one of the meatiest ones that we've dealt with. Like there's just a lot of stuff in this passage that we have to grapple with, and just a lot of stuff in our real lives for us to wrestle with. Yep. And so congratulations if you've stuck it out. We are going to continue to wrestle this out.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did you have something?
No, I just think the best is yet to come.
Amen. Yeah. So we'll leave it there for today. And if you have any questions, as always, you can send those questions to questions@courtrightchurch.org. And we will do our best to incorporate that into our weekly rhythms as we record these podcasts. For now, have a fantastic week. We'll see you next time.